Hi, I'm Bob Wigton, and it's my great pleasure today to be interviewing Hal Maurer, who came to this campus in 1993 to be dean and went on to become chancellor and accomplish amazing things by a great program of facilities and buildings and improvement of all sorts of things for the medical center. And today we're just honored to have him here talking about his experiences at the medical center. Hal?
Well, thank you, Bob. I came to UNMC on October 1st, 1993 from the Medical College of Virginia in Richmond. I had been there 25 years, and the last 17 of those 25 years, I was chair of the Department of Pediatrics at the Medical College of Virginia. Now, when I came to become the dean of the College of Medicine, my assessment was that the College of Medicine was a very fine school, that it was primarily regional, that had an excellent educational program, that was very strong, particularly in primary care, did a good job in educating the students and residents for the state of Nebraska and the surrounding region, and had a particularly strong clinical program, particularly in transplantation and in cancer care, among others. Now, as soon as I hit the ground at UNMC, the first problem that arose was a problem that was that had to do with the practice plan, then called University Medical Associates. And the audit by the IRS found that the practice plan was not in compliance. And that is, there were over 70 independent contractors, and there wasn't a single practice unit that met the requirements of the IRS. So Chancellor Aschenbrenner at that time said to me, "Hal, fix the practice plan." Now, I know the shortest deanship is 6 days, and that was at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York from a dean who came from the NIH. And the first thing he said at Mount Sinai in New York is, "I'd like to fix the practice plan." And they said, "You have another 3 days to leave the city." So I knew that when you deal with practice plans, it's fraught with danger because you're dealing with different salaries. So what I did, based upon my experience at the Medical College of Virginia, is I scheduled a meeting at 6 a.m. in the morning to make sure that all the surgeons and everyone could attend, because surgeons typically complain that they're not involved in any of the decisions. So I held a meeting with the leaders of the campus at 6 a.m. in the morning, and we explored the problem. And I decided that we would bring in a consultant from Seattle who had experience with these matters, and that was the way we went. So we held another meeting at 6 a.m. in the morning when the consultants came in and presented 5 particular options for us. At the end of the meeting, Bing Rickard said, "Hal, I don't want to meet at 6 a.m. in the morning. You make the decision." So I made the decision, and we went ahead and formed a single 501c3 for the whole campus. And Ward Chambers was the head of UMA at that time, and that's the way it worked. Till today, we have a very strong University of Nebraska Medical Center Physicians Group from that time, from the 501c3 time. Now, at the same time as we did that, there was a movement across the country to develop primary care initiatives, to build primary care workforce across the country. And what I did, based upon my experience, was to try to build a primary care initiative in the College of Medicine. And it came to be called the Dean's Primary Care Initiative. And that started the primary care satellite proposition across the state, where we had various satellite satellite offices across the city of Omaha, and we related in a much larger way to the rest of the state in primary care. Now, another problem that emerged as soon as I came was the fact that on the National Board of Medical Examiners, first exam after the new curriculum was put in place by my predecessor, Dean, sometime in 1990, 1991, was the National Board of Medical Examiners exam in June of 94. And remember, I had just arrived in October of 93. Well, the students took that exam and 18 failed. 18 members of the class failed, and which was the largest number anywhere in the country. And the Board of Regents were very concerned about that and hauled me up before the Board of Regents for me to tell them why our students failed. Well, in preparation for that, I reviewed what we had done, how successful we were on the National Board of Medical Examiners examination at that time, only to find out that there were no consistent data because some of the students took state boards and others took national boards. So I had no basis for a comparison. But at any rate, what ended up there, we reviewed the curriculum. Jay Moore reviewed the curriculum with all the curriculum leaders. And after an evaluation of the part one of the board exam, we then determined that everyone had to pass part one of the board exam in order to move on to the third year. Well, of course, magically, next year, there was a 100% pass rate on the board exam, and everyone passed on onto the third year. Subsequently, that's been moderated to some degree, that there's still some students that do not, even though they do not pass the board exam and therefore do not go on to the third year. The other initial initiative of mine was to develop the MD PhD program. There was a fledgling program in the Department of Pharmacology and the Department of Pathology, excuse me, that was started by Sam Cohn. But on the other hand, there was no generalized program in the College of Medicine for the MD PhD degree. So we found resources in the foundation in order to come up with the funds that were necessary to develop an MD PhD program that we hoped would subsequently be funded by the National Institutes of Health. So we started that program with 3 MD PhD students. Tuition was free and they got a stipend. It was a wonderful, wonderful program, and we had outstanding candidates. They had to have passed in order to succeed, otherwise the money would be withdrawn. So there was an incentive there for them to do well. The other point, as part of that, I wanted to really strengthen the research capability of the college at that time. So we developed the Dean's Indirect Cost Fund, where we shared the indirect costs that the Dean's office received with each of the department chairs, so that they could use it to hopefully accelerate the growth of their own particular departments. Another problem that we came up against was that one of a faculty development program. The faculty didn't realize that funds that the department had for faculty development and that was used on their behalf was a good enough program for the College of Medicine as a whole. So I asked Dr. Jim Linder at that time, who was the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, to come up with an important faculty development program. And we put money into that program, and it became very successful. And in fact, the faculty development program exists till today. Finally, with respect to education, the education system, we went through accreditation of the College of Medicine. And during that accreditation visit, we were cited for the poor facilities we had in the College of Medicine. The programs were strong, the faculty was strong, educational, clinical aspects were strong, the outreach programs were good, but the facilities were very poor. And if you looked around the campus, there was really nothing new on campus that could accommodate a growing academic medical center at that time. Now, Chancellor Aschenbrenner, who really recruited and appointed me, resigned in 1996. And that was about a little over 2 years after I arrived on campus. And Bill Berndt, who was the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and for Research, was appointed the Chancellor for 2 years by then President Dennis Smith. Now, Bill Berndt was a PhD. He had very little knowledge of clinical medicine. And therefore, he came to me and said, Hal, I'd like you to run the hospital. So here I had an opportunity as Dean of Medicine to not only be a leader of the practice plan, but also to run the hospital, the university hospital. At that particular time, there were a number of mergers and consolidations. HCA was buying hospitals at that time. Tenet was buying hospitals at that time. And the decision was made after HCA tried to buy Clarkson Hospital, which was right across the street. The decision was made, we at the College of Medicine should decide how do we want to be structured in the future. Would we want to become purchased by HCA? Would we want to become purchased by Tenet? Or would we have other partnerships that we should consider? So what I did is I appointed a few leaders to look at what relationship we should have with Clarkson Hospital, the VA hospital, the Children's Hospital, the Methodist Hospital, and all of these other private hospitals, private corporations like HCA and Tenet. And I asked each of these leaders to look at our options and tell us what the pros are, the cons are, and then make a recommendation, and to be back in 3 weeks. So that happened, actually, and we all met together in 3 weeks, and it became clear what our path should be. The highest priority turned out to be to form a relationship with Clarkson, to improve our relationship with the VA and form some sort of interdependent relationship, more than we already had, to form a much better relationship with Children's Hospital with respect to pediatric care, and to not engage in the relationships with HCA and Tenet. So we presented that. I presented that to Bill Berndt at that time, and he was very pleased with the outcome. And as a result of that, I had a dinner meeting with Lou Berger, who was then the CEO of Clarkson Hospital. And he and I got together, and we said, isn't it silly that we can't merge or become a partner with each other? And shouldn't we be doing something together? You're right across the street. Most of the practitioners at Clarkson are graduates of the medical center, and let's see what we can do together. So the next day, we had a breakfast meeting with Lou Berger, Bill Berndt, myself, at one of the clubs here in town, who usually do not serve breakfast, but they opened it up for us, and we decided we'd try to do something together and put together a term sheet. So what we did is essentially, over a period of time, we had 5 or so leaders on campus. Lou had about 4 or 5 leaders from the Clarkson side, and with the support of President Smith and with the support of the Clarkson Regional Health Services, Lou Berger and I, with our respective groups, went ahead to put together a term sheet that would lead to a merger between the University Hospital and Clarkson Hospital. And in fact, by October 1, 97, that occurred. And what it turned out to be was a partnership between the University Hospital and Clarkson Hospital. And the partnership meant that we didn't own them, they didn't own us. We were equal partners in this deal, which was a successful way to move forward. And we negotiated the transfer of funds to the new entity that was already being transferred to the College of Medicine from University Hospital. We negotiated the funds that would be necessary for an academic affiliation agreement, and we negotiated the funds that would come to the medical center for use in developing the academic medical center. And that turned out to be very successful. As you know, it's no longer called Nebraska Health System. It's called Nebraska Medical Center, and it's been a very successful institution. Nebraska Medical Center has, and we're very proud of what has been accomplished. Now, what has happened is that about 85% of the patients at the Nebraska Medical Center institution are patients of our faculty, and our students rotate through the Nebraska Medical Center as part of their clinical education, not only in medicine, but in all the other health professions as well. The hospital has had a very strong bottom line and has helped the medical center grow over this period of time. So it's been quite successful. Now, in terms of my own personal accomplishments during that time, when I was dean, I chaired the intergroup rhabdomyosarcoma study, which was NIH funded at about $1 million a year. We had multiple publications from that, and I was able to bring the statistical center for the study to UNMC under Jim Anderson. And it has remained under Jim Anderson ever since, even though I stepped down as the chair because I had other responsibilities. On December 1st of 1998, I was appointed Chancellor of the Medical Center after a national search. And as I was immediately asked, what would be my legacy as the Chancellor of the Medical Center? And my legacy, I said, would be to build research at UNMC. And on my tombstone, it would say, Hal Maurer built research at UNMC. That was going to be my legacy. So in order to build research at UNMC, we had to build infrastructure. And the infrastructure, to me, was facilities, space to do research. 2, we had to recruit faculty. And 3, we had to raise the funds. We had to develop funds in order to make that happen. So I set about trying to do that. Now, in doing that, I felt we had exceeded our goals to be a regional medical center. We had to be a national medical center. And we should try to be, our goal would be to be a world-class academic medical center with our partner in the Nebraska Medical Center. So we set out to do that. And we developed first a strategic plan and a vision of where we should be. And the vision was to first deliver state-of-the-art health care. Second, to prepare the best educated health professionals and scientists. Third, rank among the leading research centers in the United States. Fourth, embrace the richness of diversity to build unity. And then fifth, and we added that on, create economic growth in Nebraska, because that has the most traction in what we were doing. And what I did, which was pretty unique, is engage what I call a kitchen cabinet. And I went to the key business leaders in Omaha, and I told them that the medical center would want to be as good as they are in their business. And they said, if you want to be that good, I'll help you. So I spoke to face-to-face with Walter Scott, Mike Yanni, Ken Stinson, Bruce Lauritsen, John Gottschalk, and Moens Bai. And they formed the kitchen cabinet. I've met with them since then approximately twice, sometimes 3 times a year, without without any paper, at most 1 sheet of paper, which they give you back at the end of the 1-hour session. And it has to do with bringing new ideas to them and thinking what they think about these ideas. I never brought them any accomplishments of any kind, just new ideas. Do you think, for example, do you think a College of Public Health would be important, or would geriatrics be important? Things of that sort and for example, we did the strategic planning about facilities. So I'd bring them, well, we're thinking about these facilities. What do you think about it? Here is a plan. What do you think about it? A strategic plan. And oftentimes they would say, Hal, if it was my plan, I would do it differently, but the fact that you're planning, that's what counts. And so they were very, very helpful. And as part of that, separately, I got to know Mr. Durham, Chuck Durham, who, as you know, supported the development of the both Durham research centers here, Durham 1 and Durham 2. I got to know him, my wife and I got to know him very well. And we had lunch with him on many occasions. We had dinner with him at least once a week. And he said he can do more for people through supporting research than anything else. And with Durham's support, the fact that he contributed to the development of the medical center, I was able to gather support from the other people in Omaha who had benefited from being a Buffett shareholder. And as a result, they had made multi-millions. And these were just plain people who lived plain lives and made millions and millions of dollars, and were willing to share it with the medical center, share it with the individual. They would give it to the person. They always gave it. It was not a corporate gift. This was a private gift. They would give it to somebody who could articulate what they wanted to have happen simply, and something that they could understand, and something that would get started tomorrow. It wasn't something that you'd wait 5 years to start. They wanted to know when you would begin and when you would end. So we ended up doing a great deal of construction on campus, and we built the 2 research towers, Durham and Durham 1. We built the Center for Health Sciences, the Sorrell building. We built the Center for the Visual Handicapped. We built the Homestead Center for Successful Aging, the new College of Public Health, a new addition to the Nursing Sciences building, a student plaza with an ice skating rink that people felt was crazy, but I thought it was bringing Rockefeller Plaza to Omaha, and it's been very successful so far. And a parking lot, utility plant. We're now engaged in building an eye institute. We renovated College of Dentistry and Epley, and we have funds now for a new College of Pharmacy, and we have half of that going for a new College of Pharmacy that would have a drug discovery laboratory in it. So, and we're working on that. We reshaped the education space on campus, so it becomes a high rent district. The people are willing to give more money to have a building named after them in that particular area. So I took care of one was the facilities. The next area was to get funds to support the research. So I met with Governor Johans and said to Governor Johans, where will you want to put your tobacco settlement money? And he said, I'd like to put it in healthcare. I said, great. I said, how's about giving the medical center a third of it a year? He was going to get $55 million a year. I asked him for a third of it. It came out to about 16 or 17 million. And I was helped by Mike Yanni and Walter Scott, part of my kitchen cabinet, who met with us, particularly Walter, and he said, invest in the medical center, he said to the governor. He didn't say give them the money. He said invest in the medical center. And I brought on board with me Creighton. I brought Boys Town. and I brought UNL, even though none of the other three had anything to do with it. Well, the governor went back to the legislature, and he made the proposal, and they wanted to give him $0. So he fought with the legislature and finally ended up with $10 million a year for 2 years, $12 million a year for 2 years, then $14 million a year in perpetuity. So we went back. We have had $12 million a year for 3 years because of bad economic times. Then we had $10 million a year and $12 million a year for 2 years, and now we're into $14 million a year. On average, we get about $7 million. We get about half of that. And UNL, Creighton, and Boys Town share the rest. UNMC and UNL get about 70% of it, and the rest is shared by Creighton and Boys Town. And I had to make a deal with Creighton and Boys Town as to how much they would get. And we agreed on that number. I also had to make a deal with UNL. What they would get out of it, we agreed on that number. So that provided the seed money. Imagine starting out with half of 10, $5 million a year. That is equivalent to probably $200 million of endowment to have $5 million a year. And thereby, with the $5 million a year, you can recruit somebody who needs $1 million piece of equipment, which we did, a crystallographer. So it gave us that real presence here. So we got the tobacco settlement money. We did the facilities. Now it's up to the faculty, the leadership, to recruit faculty. And they went ahead and recruited faculty that not only was strong in the clinical arena or the educational arena, but also was strong in the research arena. And as a result, our research grant support under Tom Rosenquist's leadership as Vice Chancellor of Research climbed from about $30 million when I took over as Chancellor to about $115 million a year as of this past year. And most of that money is National Institute of Health funding. I think about 91 million of it is in NIH. So we're very, very proud of what has been accomplished. Now, we also started a new College of Public Health, which just went through accreditation. The Chancellor's Council, when it gets together and for strategic planning, which is twice a year, one for a big ideas retreat, which I put in place in November, and then in April, generally a retreat of the whole campus leadership, decided that in order to get into various programs that we need to have in all of the health science, health professions units, we need to have a College of Public Health on campus. There is no College of Public Health in Nebraska, and in fact, until the 9/11 scare, there were no public health facilities in the state of Nebraska. The state had to develop public health clinics across the state, and they used some of the money that was available because of 9/11 to develop those programs. But these folks in the clinics were not people who had been certified in any way at colleges of public health. They were people who worked in the state and then went on to do that. So we went ahead and proposed to the President and the Board of Regents that we develop build a College of Public Health. And to make a long story short, College of Public Health, as I mentioned, was dedicated a new facility actually in May of this year, May 18th of 2011. And in fact, my wife Beverly and I are honored because the college was named, or the center was named after Beverly and me on campus. Now, I'm also very proud of the fact that our rankings in U.S. News and World Report have really climbed. Our rankings now this year, we are ranked 7th in the nation in primary care medicine. we're ranked 14th in the nation in rural medicine. We're ranked 66th in the nation in research. Now, we're steadily improving in research, and we have a long way to go, but it shows consistent improvement. Now, the other colleges and schools are also doing well. They're all the College of Nursing Master's Program, the Physician Assistant and PT program, the College of Pharmacy program, are all in the top 20% of their colleges across the United States. It's a hell of an achievement. And the College of Dentistry has no ranking system, but they are in the top 3 in the U.S. in terms of GPAs. And when they leave, their students are in the top 3 in terms of their exam, of their final exam. Enrollment has increased. I would never have thought enrollment would increase because we fill all our places, but we expanded enrollment to increase the workforce, particularly in nursing, but also in allied health and medicine, and also in our graduate programs. Our application rate, which is what I look at since we fill every slot, our application rate is now soared to over 4,000 applicants a year. We've developed a new division of nursing in Norfolk. The College of Nursing developed the first new division. We have divisions in Scottsbluff, Kearney, Lincoln, and Omaha. Omaha is the main campus. Because 15% of the population live in northeast Nebraska, we went ahead and determined the feasibility of doing it, and we've done it. They built a facility for our folks, and it started. We have 32 students now, going on to 48 this year. Also, we are building a new VA hospital, and we were instrumental in getting $560 million in the federal government budget to build a new VA hospital. We were third from the bottom of 446 hospitals to get any money. But with the help of Walter Scott and the kitchen cabinet and with Senator Nelson and Johans and Lee Terry, we were able to move it from third from the bottom to second from the top. And the VA will get a new building, $560 million, plus they've already gotten about $30 million for planning funds. And that should be a real boon to our education and research programs. We now have faculty that exceed over 1,000, and our reputation at a national level is growing, as is our reputation of our hospital. And that is also growing and providing resources to UNMC. We've developed a heart transplantation program on top of what we've had traditionally, which has been a liver transplantation program and kidney. Now we have a small bowel transplantation program. We rank among the top 3 in the nation. We've developed a new emergency medicine department, and which we never had before. We are outstanding in the area of bioterrorism preparedness because one of our faculty, Chair of Pathology, Steve Hendricks, has done, that's his area of expertise. We are developing an electronic medical record for the whole state, which would be unusual in America. And we've also developed a very strong global health program, particularly with China, India, Moscow, and Afghanistan. This past year, we developed a branding initiative to determine what really characterizes UNMC, and the branding initiative came out with the word vitality. Vitality is the word that expresses the best what is happening at UNMC in terms of its faculty and staff and others. In addition, they came out, they proposed a tagline, and the tagline is breakthroughs for research. Breakthroughs for life, excuse me. Breakthroughs for life. And they've also developed a little icon pin that we all wear. It's very attractive, and that we use on all kinds of publications, and finally to develop a color palette so we were consistent in how we present ourselves as a campus to the rest of the world. And everybody seems to like it. And people are gradually moving from their own little icon to what we have for the medical center. Our current strategic priorities are cancer, transplantation, cardiovascular disease, neuroscience, genetics, bioterrorism preparedness, and nanomedicine. We're looking forward to continuing the momentum on this campus for the foreseeable future.
Hal,
Thank you.
going back to all these accomplishments,
Yes.
how do you think are the things about you that allowed you to get all this done and maybe not your predecessors so much?
Well, I think, I think one is, and I've been told by Mike Sorrell that this is what he thinks has happened, is that, first of all, I'm an outsider. I'd never been here before, and I've been at good places, and I was at Columbia, I was here or there, and I know what the opportunities were. I knew when I came here that there were tremendous opportunities for development here. I knew when I came here that I could not expect the state of Nebraska to provide funds to develop this medical center. And I knew that if it was going to develop, we would have to do it ourselves. And in order to do that, we would have to get the participation of the leaders in Omaha, which was the financial capital. And we had to make them feel some ownership in the process. In order to do that, you got to get to know them really well. They have to trust you. And you have to have some good ideas. So I think that's what allowed me to do that. Now, we were very fortunate that Lou Berger was on the other side of the street, and when we formed that merger. And I think that was critical to the success of this place, the merger, to bring together the community, because the community was mostly on the side of Clarkson. Mm-hmm. To bring the community together to work on the medical center as part of Clarkson as part of the medical center, then they had a pass, and they could participate. And the fact that Durham was the first one to deliver, and when I said Durham contributed, then that said, well, if Durham contributed, I'm going to contribute. And so I think I was able to do that. Now, if you asked me what were the things that I think were most, and I'm an infrastructure person. I look at, I don't like the edges. I look at what you do to put something in place that will stay in place. So I think the things that are important to me was putting together a single 501c3. That was number one, where the faculty came together. Number two, I would say, is the development of the merger. Mm-hmm. See, I would say Clarkson and UNMC. So you got the faculty practice plan, you got Clarkson and UNMC coming together to build a really strong facility, a strong hospital system. And then I believe the next important step was to try to build the facilities. The facilities, get the facilities. I think that was pretty important for the growth of this place. And as part of that, the tobacco settlement money. So you get the tobacco settlement money, you get the facilities on board, you have something cooking up where you can recruit various people. And then, of course, the ability to recruit faculty and deans that were strong leaders. They're pretty important. Now, one of the things, when I first said to, I won't tell you who was in that group, I'd like to build a new college of medicine. And the people around the table, some of them said, it's impossible, you're not going to do it. You know what happened? I never invited him back to another meeting.
Now, when were you thinking of this? Is this while you were still dean, or?
Well, when I was dean, you remember we talked about having the Twin Towers.
Yes.
Remember we talked about the Twin Towers. And then when I became chancellor, I was able to really implement that. But in order to implement it, I had to get the money. Durham was a very generous donor.
So I get the impression you felt that getting the Clarkson on board as part of us really brought a lot of the community with you.
Brought a lot of community, that's right. It brought the community together to say, wow, look what we could do.
Now, I know that Beverly has contributed a lot. Could you comment on
Yeah.
how
My wife, Beverly, my wife and I are a couple. We're married now 51 years.
Wow.
And my wife is a very independent thinker. And she says it the way it is. And the community likes her very much. And so she's been welcomed into the community and welcomed into the group of people that make a difference in this community. And in order to make a difference in the community, you have to be a player. You have to participate in what's happening in the community. You cannot ignore it. And if you're as a couple, you have a greater advantage than you might think as a single individual. So we were embraced in the community, and we were promoted in the community. And Beverly had a great role in that. She is as strong a supporter. She is as strong a supporter of UNMC as I am. And so as a couple, we were able to do a lot in the community, which has helped the medical centers and in turn helped the university. We have formed relationships in this community that has benefited the university in Champaign, Nebraska. It's our donors. The people that we've formed relationships with that form the bulk of the donors to the university's campaign, whether it's for UNL or UNO, I won't say UNK, but these are the folks that we've made great strides with here. The other thing we've done is we give these folks credit for what they do. Mm-hmm. It's no one else, we don't take any credit. We give credit to the kitchen cabinet if they participate in all that business. Walter Scott, Mike Yanni, the federal delegation, they were the ones that made it happen. We just brought it to them. And they took it on because they felt that they wanted to have ownership in this thing. They thought it was good for the people of the city and the state. So at any rate.
Could you say a little bit about the Moving Saddle Creek initiative?
Oh, yeah. We have several other things. First of all, in the future, we looked at this campus and we said that the OPPD, the Omaha Public Power District, is located in prime space. And they have that area, and most of it is lay-down facilities, for poles. It's not the economic development. So I met with Chuck Durham, and Chuck Durham facilitated. I told Chuck what I wanted, and he said, "Hal, you're right." So we had a meeting with Peterson at that time, Fred Peterson, who ran OPPD, and I said, "We'd like you to move." What do you mean? Well, we'd like you to move. And Chuck said, not only I want you to move, but when you do move, you give Hal that property for $1. So he said, well, then it was the end of the luncheon. After lunch, he calls me up. He says, we're not ready to move. So I said, well, we need that property. Gary Gates came over. He was, Fred Peterson was already retiring. Gary Gates came in. I went to speak to Gary Gates, and I said, we'd like you to move. And he said, okay, find a property for us. So we found property for him at the airport. We built him what his facility here up to that. Whatever he wanted to add beyond that, he paid for it. Now, the second project was big project. I finished that up. That's going to become the cancer campus. That's the future cancer campus. Now, the second problem, the second issue was, if you look at a map of the medical center, Saddle Creek Road cuts right through it. So I said to the mayor and to everybody who would listen, we want to move Saddle Creek Road west, and I'd like to see us have a few lakes on our campus and maybe housing around the lakes. I went to developers and they said, you give me 25 acres, I'll make you how many lakes you want. I said, okay, we can do it. It's doable. So then we went to the mayor and we told him we'd like to move Saddle Creek. What's under Saddle Creek? He says, there's sewage and then the water pipes or whatever it is on the Saddle Creek Road. And he said the federal government wants us to fix that. In order to fix it from 42nd Street, you know, looking at the Saddle Creek, from Leavenworth, that is, all the way up, it would cost like $250 million to do that. Now, we got money from the federal government, planning money, about $2 million from Senator Nelson to plan Saddle Creek Road. So we want to move Saddle Creek Road west. I suspect that Saddle Creek Road will begin to move west in 2 years. It'll start with construction at Dodge and Saddle Creek. Now, what has it taken? Well, we had to work with the federal highway system, the state highway system, the city, the neighborhood association. I thought we could do it much more easily, but we can't. We had to get all these things in order. And every time there's a new head of the federal highway system, and he has to start all over. So I believe we're okay now. HDR is planning it. It's unlikely that we're going to see any lakes because it's too expensive to go underground. The second proposal is to produce these swales. They're called swales. To me, they're like big ditches, but it's a swale, and something along that line will occur. When that occurs, it opens up space for us for another 2 research towers. That's the goal, and or a biotechnology campus that we could recruit here. So there are a lot of opportunities if we move Saddle Creek Road to the west, which we're trying to do. Yeah. So it takes you got to be persistent, strategic, and open-minded. Be able to accept rejection and things like that. But it's been a lot of fun.
Well, Hal, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful career.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
What a lot of accomplishments.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. The important point is that the medical center has a long way to go. And I think the Nebraskans got to understand that just if it meets its needs is not enough. They shouldn't settle for that. They should settle with what can we do for the nation at the same time as meeting our own needs in Nebraska. I think that's very important. But Nebraskans, you got to be able to, they got to change the way they look at things. And we had a situation where one member of the Board of Regents said, when we were trying to do something, sort of an initiative as, well, how do you know the Board of Regents want to do that? You don't know that they're going to approve it, that they like it the way it is. I said, well, we're going to hope for the best, make the best plan we can. So I think that's what we got to overcome. what I would, one more thing, what I would like to see is that UNMC is #1 in the state, not football. That's what I'd like to see. And it's going to take a long time for that to happen. Long time. Especially now that they're in the Big Ten.